Okay, we're going to do a hypothesis review today just to kind of go over and reinforce what you learned yesterday. And then we'll move on to graphing data, okay? So the big thing to remember is the if-then statement. If you use that format, it almost writes itself for you. All right, so remember that the if-then statement is composed of 8 different points or 8 different features. So you have if, that's 1. You put in your IV, that's 2. You then add a connector, that's 3. You then state your DV, that's 4. Then you put in a comma right here, and that's 5. Next, you use the word then, and that's your 6th piece. You then make a prediction, that's 7. And then you end the whole thing with punctuation, a period, and that's 8. Now, remember yesterday I told you that if you want to, and this is just a personal option, you're welcome to go over and beyond and add that because portion of the hypothesis. All right, let's just review those steps one more time. You start your sentence with the word if. You write down the independent variable or the IV. You connect the statement with one of the following connectors. Is related to, is affected by, or causes. You then state the dependent variable and put a comma at the end. The then portion goes like this. You next add the word then. You make a prediction, and you do that using the relationship between the two variables, the IV and the DV, and then you end with a period. All right, so let's look at this. Let's look at 2 hypotheses and go ahead and identify that they are in that if, then, because format. So here we go. You have the word if right there. Then you have your IV right here, if color change. So this is the leaves changing colors. Is related to, that's going to be that connector, to temperature, that's your DV. The temperature is going to be measured, and you'll be watching as that temperature changes to see how it what happens with the leaves. You then put that comma. You use the word then, and then they go ahead and explain what they think will happen. Exposing plants to low temperatures will result in changes in leaf color. Now, most of you can just stop right there, but they add the because portion, and they explain why they think this will happen. Because cooler weather causes a chemical change in the leaf. Next example, if skin cancer, that's your IV, is related to, that's your connector, ultraviolet light, that's your DV, then people with high exposure to UV light will have a higher frequency of skin cancer. Now, you could stop there, or you could explain why. Because UV rays cause radiation that damages a cell's DNA. And here I've just got those variables ringed right there. All right, let's try this one. Does the amount of studying I do determine if I get better grades? What are we going to change on purpose? What are we testing? Okay, we're actually testing the amount of studying. So the amount of studying I do. How are we going to know the results? What are we going to observe? How do we know what wins? Okay, and that would be the grades. The grades will tell you if it's worth the time for studying. So we write that hypothesis like this. If, notice the amount of studying is color-coded, that's our IV. The amount of studying I do affects, that's our connector. My grades, that's our DV. Then the more I study, the better my grades will be. And then I could add that because portion, because the more I look at the content, the more I learn.